Hi, welcome to today's webinar, Worship Setlist, Essential Tips on How to Choose the Right Songs. My name is Jose Alvarado. I am a Public Relations Specialist. Today we'll be discussing different tips on how to improve your overall worship experience by choosing the appropriate songs for your worship service. Although I do not have a lot of experience in the worship field, today we have a special guest, Omar Tapia. He is a worship leader and founder of Sonido Libre, a nonprofit organization that focuses on helping out the local Hispanic church to improve their worship team by offering resources and tips that will help them overall. So without further ado, here's Omar Tapia.
Hello, everyone. My name is Omar Tapia, and we are here to discuss how to select a worship set list. And I'm pretty sure that some of you that are listening out there are either worship leaders, or if you're not worship leaders, then you're going to learn something that's fairly new. And so one of the things that I've come to find out over the years of my experience is that it's not just about selecting songs, but it's about selecting the right songs. How do your songs flow with the message? And there's a lot of little things that we want to look at. And so today we're going to be discussing a couple of tips that I think will get you on the right path. I think first things first is really the thought process that goes behind, selecting these songs. There's a couple of things that you might want to look into. What is the purpose of the set list that you are selecting? What are you trying to accomplish? Is there a particular topic that the pastor is really talking about, is bringing up? And, one of those things could be he might be preaching a series during this time or during this season. You might be approaching a particular date that is significant to your faith. That could be the songs could be appropriate for that as well. And so you also want to make sure that the songs that you are bringing up or selecting are also fitting within the amount of time that you are allotted. Some of us, I know in my experience, I've had services where they said, hey, man, you have free reign. You have 45 minutes, and you select 5 or 6 songs to flow through, and really, you don't have a rushed experience there. But I've also been in environments where they put a time restriction on you. You say 15 minutes. I need you to be in and out. Really be precise with what you bring forth. Connect the people. I've had pastors that have come up to me and talked to me in that, in that regard, in that manner, where they want you to be precise with everything that you're bringing in. And really that takes me to the points that I wanted to bring up today. I think the first one is having that communication with your pastor. If you don't have that communication with your pastor, then it's going to be really difficult for you to accomplish what he might be looking for as an expectation. What kind of expectation does your pastor have for their worship department? What kind of songs does he want you to bring? Does he want you to bring moderate worship, or does he want you to bring a little bit of mix of, contemporary and classical worship together, right? And so that will help you weed out anything that doesn't fall within that criteria. And so that communication is really important. And I think that's one of the things that we have a lot of difficulty with, because sometimes the pastor will be too busy with other ministerial things, the things that are involved in his ministry. And then you're involved with your ministry. You might have a large number of volunteers or maybe paid staff members that you're working with. And so having to set up all the music, having to select the parts and things like that could end up consuming a lot of your time. So having that clear communication between you and your pastor is really key. So let's say, for example, your pastor is preaching on salvation. He's got a series on salvation. That gives you an idea of saying, hey, we're not gonna sing songs about, the miraculous works of Jesus or anything like that. But we're definitely going to go and focus in on outreaching to the lost, going out there and seeing people saved, the salvation, the blood of Jesus, and what that does for us as well. Right? That takes me to my second point, which is relevancy to the message, right? Which is what we were just previously talking about, is the fact that you don't want your songs to collide or to have some kind of clash where you're singing about a particular topic and then the pastor comes up and preaches a completely other message. You want there to be a flow. a steady flow where it's an easy transition to where you prepare the people's hearts with song and prepare their minds for what the message is basically, I like to look at it this way. As me and my wife, we do a lot of gardening. And so there's a process in gardening, right? You have to till the ground in order to plant the seed, and we use comparison a lot in the Christian environment, where pastor comes in and the word is the message is the seed that's being planted, but the worship team is the equipment or the tool that is used to prepare the hearts for what the pastor has in regards to a message, right? And you want to make sure that you're searching. If you don't have a song that relates to that message, or that relates to what is being preached, or maybe about a particular thing that you want to sing about, you want to search your database. You want to search and see if you can expand your database. What other worship teams are doing songs out there that are relevant to what you're trying to accomplish, right? That helps out with the selection of that as well. And then the third thing here is sharing that with your worship team. How are you communicating with your worship team? There is a lot of resources out there. Certain things like Planning Center Online, as well as band.com, which are online resources that you can gather up your worship team on that database. And as you're selecting songs, you can send out a message, because, one of the things that I see a lot and that a lot of worship teams struggle with is getting those songs on time. And then you're having to come in together. They didn't get them on time. They didn't have enough time to review the songs. Therefore, they're now having to pull open their iPads or laptops and things like that. And that causes a big distraction. One, it causes a distraction in the congregation. Two, it also removes your worship team member from having the ability to connect with God as he's actually on that platform doing worship there as well. So what we want them to do is we want them to get these songs on in a timely manner. If you have a message that you need to communicate with them, or if there's been some sudden changes that you think about, you're enabled to do that as well on those online databases. Another thing that we used to do before these online databases even came to be was get everybody's email and gather everybody up in Gmail or something like that, where we can open up a messenger, right, and send an instant message to the worship team with YouTube links to the songs that we were either introducing, or maybe a tutorial that we found online for a particular song that we're doing. And so those were helpful resources to enable our team to do their best, right? And we want to make sure that everybody is able to see the songs, whether it be through a text as well. I mean, if you don't have email, if you don't have online databases, you can't pay for those services, or whatever the case might be. Nowadays, I'd go out on a limb and say 99% of people have cell phones. And so cell phones can also be used as a resource. It's not just something that you can watch Facebook on or anything like that, but as a resource to send out these songs, and any way you go about it, I think it's just the timeliness of when you're sending out these songs, making sure that you actually get these songs on time to whoever they correspond, the parts to whoever they correspond to as well, and make sure that they're following up with that, practicing and making sure that they've got it. You have to do that follow-up, because you can't just send it and think that everybody's going to see it. You want to make sure that you're following up with guys if they don't have questions. You might have a young worship team, and this is a way that can establish that relationship between you and them. So these are just a couple of tips here that I've thought about, and I'd like to share with you guys today.
Great, Omar. Thank you for sharing this. And I have several questions for you. And so as far as about the thought process, how do you make time out of your busy day to choose these songs? 'Cause, I mean, it's easy to say, you have this database, but how do you make the time? I mean, when you have a busy schedule and you're not like fully focused on just the worship team.
Well, there's a variety of things. As a matter of fact, as you were asking me that, I'm thinking of a couple of things here. One of the things that we do is we listen to other artists. Especially as a worship department, we don't always come up with original songs and things like that. We have a lot of dependency on current artists that are out there that create corporate worship songs. And so one of the things that you can do is get on these services like Spotify and listen to the latest albums. They also provide resources sometimes on their websites to be able to say, hey, this is the song that I created. These are the chords that are associated with that song. That's also a helpful resource. So that way you're not in there having to listen to the songs the way we used to and trying to see, okay, this chord goes here, this chord goes there. They've already done all that homework for you. I think another thing that you can do as well is just if you are that type of worship department that has the time to write your own music, then you have that time in rehearsal time. You establish maybe half an hour to an hour once a week, twice a month, or whatever the case might be, where you gather together and write a song together at least once a month.
Okay, great. And as far as the relevancy to the message, how do you do it whenever, perhaps, your pastor sent out the program for the week and, he told you a certain topic he was going to, discuss, but, last minute, he decides to change the topic. Like, how do you know how do you manage that situation where, you have to change the set list on the spot? Like, how do you manage that?
See, that's one of those scenarios that's really good and is really typical, especially in evangelical, environments, where charismatic environments there. I think one of the things that has really helped us out is having that online database, where you have all your songs in all the keys that you sing them in. And so depending on if the pastor switches the message from salvation to healing, well, you look up the songs that are relevant to healing and you have that access on there, and everybody on your team has access to that. So I think one of the things that you can also do, for example, is after the pastor preaches a message, if it wasn't related to anything that you sung in the first set list and you need to go back for ministry time, as he's preaching, you're going through your mind saying, all right, what song is applicable to this message? What song can relate to it? What can be relevant? I think those are two helpful tips.
Yeah, that's something that definitely helps out. And then lastly, as far as, sharing with the worship band, I've heard that there are several, applications that you can use, like while you're playing that, you're able to, see the exact same key that the other one is playing. So, what experience do you have with those type of programs?
I know that Planning Center has a side application that they use. I think it's Worship List or something like that, but it's definitely a side application that they offer. And as you're opening up the songs, everybody's seeing it, and the person who's controlling that set can go in there and make modifications, and it works pretty well. But I think another thing besides being dependent on an application is really learning like the numeric system, where we can shoot numbers out with our hands and everybody knows and understands what key we're in or what keys we're changing to based off of those hand signals. Another thing that you can do is, if you don't know the numeric system and you have an in-ear monitoring system that's available to you, then having somebody on a talkback mic where it doesn't sound out into the audience, but you can definitely hear them in your in-ear monitors, and you can communicate with your team. Hey, we're about to go into the chorus, or hey, we're about to change it to this song and we're going to play it in this key. And everybody with those in-ears is aware and can definitely adapt to that.
Okay, great. Well, I think that's it for today. We want to thank Omar Tapia for coming out, taking time to share these tips with us.
Thank you.
So thank you for everyone who's listening. And if you have any questions, feel free to post the questions and we'll be glad to get back to you.